Welcome to War and Untold Stories. Here, we explore the hidden side of history, the daring prison escapes, and the shocking crimes that history tried to forget. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, and share your thoughts in the comments. Now let's dive into today's story. On the night of August 8, 1963, Britain witnessed one of the most audacious crimes in its history. A Royal Mail train traveling from Glasgow to London was stopped in the quiet countryside. 15 men, armed and masked, executed a plan months in the making. Within hours, they vanished with $2.6 million, equivalent to tens of millions today. The Great Train Robbery wasn't just a crime. It was a bold, meticulously planned heist that would capture the imagination of a nation. Tonight, we uncover the story behind Britain's most daring train robbery, how it was planned, executed, and why it remains legendary to this day. Now let's travel back to the swinging 1960s. London was buzzing, the Beatles were topping the charts, and people were cautiously optimistic about the future after World War II. But here's the thing. As the decade progressed, crime rates started creeping up, and in the eyes of many, the government wasn't doing enough to tackle it. This led to a rise in vigilante groups and ordinary folks taking matters into their own hands. And then there were those who took it to another level altogether. A select few who turned to a life of crime. These weren't your everyday petty criminals. No, sir. They were career criminals, professionals who knew the ins and outs of the game. They had skills that could make even the most intricate heist look like a walk in the park. One such individual was Bruce Reynolds, a man who some called the mastermind and others called a professional criminal. Now, let's set the scene. We're in the early 1960s, a time when banks were more secure than Fort Knox, and getting past their tight security was like trying to crack the safe at Alcatraz. But for Reynolds and his gang, this was just another Tuesday. Enter the Royal Mail train. It was the epitome of security back then, a heavily guarded, locked-up tight metal box on wheels. And what did it carry? You guessed it, sacks upon sacks of cash. Yes, you heard right, literally millions of pounds. Imagine if someone robbed a bank. Well, these trains were like banks on wheels. And this was not your average run-of-the-mill train. No, sir. It was a treasure trove on tracks carrying the equivalent of tens of millions of pounds today. So here's the question that's been on everyone's mind since 1963. How do you rob something as secure as a Royal Mail train? Well, for these men, nothing was impossible. They scouted locations, observed schedules, and formulated plans. They watched the train's every move like a hawk, all in an effort to find the perfect spot to strike. Their target had to be just right, somewhere isolated, easy to access, but hard to escape. After weeks of stakeouts, they finally found their spot. It was near the quiet village of Ledburn in Buckinghamshire. The plan was as audacious as it was brilliant, and it all came down to this one crucial element: timing. They needed to stop the train dead in its tracks, and they had to do it without getting caught. So they did what any seasoned professionals would do. They created the perfect decoy. Yes, you guessed it, a fake signal. All they needed to do was get the train to stop under the guise of a routine signal, and the rest would be history. You might be wondering how exactly they pulled off such an elaborate stunt. Well, let me tell you, these guys were the OG special effects team. They rigged up a fake signal that looked so real you'd swear it was the genuine article. Then it was just a matter of waiting for the perfect moment. When the Royal Mail train approached their signal, they put their plan into action. It was showtime. The train slowed down, stopped, and the gang struck. They hit the train like a sack of bricks, surprising the crew and making sure everything went according to plan. Let me assure you, there was no room for mistakes here. Lives could have been lost, fortunes could have been squandered. The stakes were high and the pressure was immense, but our gang of professionals handled it like seasoned veterans. They executed their roles flawlessly, stopping the train, overpowering the crew, and securing the cargo. In what seemed like a scene from a Hollywood movie, they managed to load over $2.6 million in cash onto waiting vehicles and vanished into thin air. If you're scratching your head wondering how much that amount would be today, well, buckle up because it's astronomical. That's the equivalent of tens of millions in today's money. Talk about a hefty haul. The quiet countryside became their playground as they sped away, leaving behind a stunned crew and a trail of unanswered questions. How did they manage to pull off such an audacious heist? Where were they going to stash the loot? And most importantly, would they ever be caught? The answers to these questions would send shockwaves throughout Britain and beyond. As the dust settled on that fateful night, the British public woke up to a different kind of mourning. Newspapers blared the shocking details of the previous night's events, and the nation was left reeling. Headlines screamed from every page, demanding answers and justice, and the authorities were under immense pressure to deliver. The Metropolitan Police, Scotland Yard's elite investigative unit, was on the case, but they faced a daunting challenge. The gang had vanished without a trace, leaving behind only a mountain of cash and a handful of clues. Now, let's talk about the investigation, because this was no ordinary police procedure. This was a manhunt like never seen before. Every lead was pursued, every witness interviewed. And slowly, painstakingly, the pieces of the puzzle began to fit together. Fingerprints were dusted for, fibers and hair were examined, and every scrap of evidence was analyzed for clues. It was a meticulous process, but the stakes were too high for anything less. Meanwhile, the gang, they were living the high life, enjoying their ill-gotten gains. But their carefree days were numbered. The long arm of the law was closing in, and their luck was about to run out. It was like a game of cat and mouse, except here the mouse was smarter than you think. Each step the police took was met with a countermove from the gang. They had anticipated this and planned accordingly. But here's the thing, no plan is foolproof, and soon enough, cracks began to show in the gang's armor. Mistakes were made, careless moves that provided the police with the edge they needed. One by one, the gang was rounded up, their freedom snatched away. And when the mastermind himself, Bruce Reynolds, was caught, the story took a dramatic turn. Imagine waking up one ordinary day, living your life, not a worry in the world. And then suddenly everything changes in the blink of an eye. That's exactly what happened to the unsuspecting residents of Bucks County. Their peaceful lives were turned upside down when the unthinkable happened on their doorstep. When the news broke, the country erupted. Newspapers couldn't contain the explosive details, and every household was buzzing with the latest updates. It was like a real-life thriller, except this time the drama was all too real. As the story unfolded, the public's fascination grew. They were captivated by the audacity of the crime, the brilliance of the plan, and the audacity of the criminals. But amidst the excitement, there was a darker undercurrent, a growing sense of unease. People began looking over their shoulders, questioning motives and wondering if they, too, could fall victim to such a plot. Suddenly, their own security seemed fragile. It was a stark reminder that in the game of cat and mouse, the tables could turn in an instant. And then there was the financial loss. The amount stolen was staggering, and it shook the very foundations of the country's banking system. People questioned the security measures, the oversight, and the protocols that allowed such a massive heist to occur. It was a blow to their collective confidence, and it took time to rebuild that trust. The Great Train Robbery didn't just shake Bucks County. It echoed across Britain and beyond. It became a defining moment in criminal history, a testament to the cunning and audacity of the human mind. It raised questions about security, trust, and the lengths to which one man's greed could go. And in the years that followed, the echoes of this daring robbery continued to reverberate. Well, folks, we've reached the end of our journey through Britain's most audacious heist, the Great Train Robbery. It's a tale that continues to fascinate, a story of daring, deceit, and the relentless pursuit of fortune. If you enjoyed this thrilling ride, don't forget to hit that thumbs up button for more captivating tales. And as always, thanks for watching.